being flexible on our payment options, payment plans, down payments to try to kind of reach a wider demographic and to make the treatment more accessible.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Commercial Real Estate Secrets, where I'm your host, Austin Hare. And our guest today is Dr. Yarmolyuk. He's the founder and president of Orthodontic Experts. They were founded in December of 2012, and they have 21 locations throughout the Midwest right now. And so, Dr. Y, pleasure to have you on the show today. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Austin. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
And also tuning in today, we got Ben Weisberg, who works with you guys. So, Ben, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Austin.
So, all right, let's, I love your story, Dr. Y. It's not very often that we get an immigrant, someone who's born outside of the U.S., who has come over here to be on the show, and especially someone who's built such a successful business. So that's great. So I know you came over here when you were 19, but you were born in the Ukraine. So what was that like being born over there?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I came here when I was 19, shortly after high school. I mean, it was different. It was an interesting period because I was born in the Soviet Union, and then we went kind of through the post-Soviet era. So a lot of changes.
That's crazy. So you were born
during different periods.
Yeah, you were born while it was still in the Soviet Union. So how did things change? Because I know the Soviet Union crashed, and then they switched over to different different government, like running things.
Right. I mean, the economy totally collapsed. Everything collapsed. I mean, everything was centralized before in Soviet Union. So once that collapsed, local governments didn't know what to do and how to run things. So it was a mess. So it was interesting. As a child, I guess it was an interesting period since you didn't have to worry about providing for your family and things like that. But I'm sure it was very stressful.
I'm just thinking now. I mean, I can't even imagine if the U.S. government were to collapse like that happened over there. So, I mean, what's that like? Everybody who has like a retirement account and their house value and their life savings, all of that is just wiped out in one instant. Is that what happens?
Yeah, there was nothing. Yeah, everything was wiped out. Different currency, no jobs, all the supply chains collapsed. I mean, it was all centralized. All of a sudden, in my town, we had a big chemical plant, and all of a sudden that they couldn't get any raw material, they couldn't sell any products. I mean, it was all decentralized, and that's it.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy. So, would you compare it to like the Great Depression in the U.S., or was it worse than that?
I mean, it's hard to say because I wasn't part of that, but I think it was worse. It was different.
Yeah, me either.
I think it was, people probably didn't take it as bad because they were used to, living in harsh conditions. So probably was a bigger shock in the U.S. during Great Depression. But I think as far as the actual living conditions and the actual economy, I'm sure it was worse.
So, how do you think that shaped you growing up? I'm not sure how old you were when this whole entire government system collapses. You see everybody struggling and going through these hardships. What kind of lessons did you learn from that, and how do you think that made your future different?
I think it just made you look for opportunities more because you literally had to kind of look for things to, there was no job, so people had to get creative on how they earn their income and how they did things. I think it just made you think outside the box and accept that there is no kind of status quo, so you shouldn't really get too comfortable with the way things are at any point, because there could always be a change and you should always be looking for opportunities and ways to adapt to the changes.
So what made you decide to leave over there and come to the U.S.?
The opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah, the time I left, I was still, Ukraine was a very, very new country, so there was still very little opportunities and very little in terms of the future.
What, like any particular opportunity?
No, just in general, education and jobs and
Okay.
business. I
So
mean, I
you
was
said,
19,
hey,
so I
I don't,
wasn't thinking of specifics.
yeah. You just said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I just know that I'm getting out of here. I'm just going to grab my stuff, head over to the US, and hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I had the drive and the energy, but I knew the Ukraine wouldn't kind of provide the opportunities for that to
That's
realize
crazy.
myself.
That's super cool. Okay. So then how did you get into like how does that segue into orthodontics and starting your own OSO?
Just started in college, obviously, as any college kid, and then slowly. I mean, I knew I wanted to be in healthcare, and I always wanted to be in medical field, and but I always knew I wanted to own a business also. And at some
Mm,
point in college, I realized that medicine is probably not the best field to own your own business anymore. So dentistry still provides that balance where you can still be a clinician, but also a business owner.
okay. So did you come right out of school then and buy your first practice, or what was that like?
Yeah, I came out of school again during 2012, so that wasn't the best job market either, because orthodontics being more of an aesthetic kind of treatment, cosmetic treatment, that was one of the hardest hit um, dental specialties during during the 2008 2009 recession. So when I came out of school, there still weren't that many orthodontic jobs. So I ended up finding a few part-time positions and had to fill in my schedule with something. So I started working on opening my own practice.
Okay. Okay. And so I feel like as an entrepreneur, we always overestimate the amount of money we'll make and underestimate the amount of time it'll take to get there. Did you have like a similar experience?
And definitely, the time I knew it was going to be a big time commitment. At that time. Um, so yeah, I can't say that. I expect it to be easy. I mean, I knew I'll have to put a lot of time into it.
Nice. Um, okay, so in general, it was there was nothing did anything unexpected happen? Like I mean, I remember I had some gyms and I've had a couple different businesses over the years and we knew it was going to be hard work, but we thought we'd hit our certain like revenue projections, within like 6 months or whatever. And 6 months comes around, we're not hitting them. So okay, so we put in some more hours, we tried some different things. 12 months comes around, we're not hitting them. It's like okay, this is really hard. 15 months comes around, and it's like we finally start to get to like the break even point. Like we've been bleeding cash the whole time, and our goal was 6 months to get to break even. And so it's like I don't regret. And then the gyms ended up working out really well. I was able to sell them and stuff like that. I don't regret it, but had I known how hard it was going to be, I wouldn't have got started. Like had I known how long it was going to take. And so I think it's one of those things. Like for me personally, I had to have like optimism. I had to be overly optimistic about it in order to get started. Because if I knew what I knew now, like I wouldn't have done it. I would have tried something else, and I would have had kind of those same frustrations as well. So I'm just curious if you ever experienced something like that.
Yeah, I think maybe initially I wasn't as business savvy. Maybe it was a little more ignorant, so I didn't really have like benchmarks in my head. Or I didn't. With my first few practices, it was more of an organic growth. Like I said, the first practice was just to fill in my schedule because I couldn't find a job. So maybe that worked in my favor. The ignorance because I didn't really have hard kind of financial benchmarks that I wanted to hit. This is more of I needed a job, so I'm gonna work at it.
Okay. Um, and so yeah, you're going along. You got your first one. Like, what was it like going? It's always I feel like it's a significant transition when you go from having one practice because you can kind of just do everything yourself to having multiple practices. What was that
Mhm.
transition like for you going from one to two practices?
Yeah, I think that the key was to have good people, and I found other good doctors who joined me as associates, and some people who helped me as far as running the business. So then I realized that I could spend my time elsewhere and help grow the practice. So I think that was the key initially, having good people on board.
Okay. Um, and then like, in that process, I know we were talking off camera about like one of your biggest mistakes was trying to grow too fast and or too wide. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so when we started growing in Illinois, again, having a really solid team and clinical team and business team, pretty much every practice we touched was a success for the first, probably 10 practices. So I
Nice.
think I got a little bit overly confident and maybe overestimated my abilities. So we looked into kind of other growing states. I mean, we did do some demographic research and look at the states that are growing, that have opportunities. So we ended up purchasing a few practices in Colorado, even though the demographics might have been right, but we underestimated how hard it's going to be to manage them remotely without having a solid management team, without having good people on the ground. So that didn't work as well as as we expected. We had tried for about 3 years, didn't get to anywhere close to where we wanted to be. So we ended up at the end of the day, it's we'll leave it to the guys who have better presence there, and the ones who have it figured out in that market. So we ended up selling those practices. So that was a good
Mm.
lesson to kind of
So the
know your
lesson being
limitations.
know your limitations. Okay, yeah, you try to expand too wide too quickly, and so now you're keeping things a lot closer to home, right? I guess you're in Illinois, Indiana, and you said
Yeah, in
Wisconsin.
Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin. Yeah, we're trying to grow more from the nucleus.
Okay, and the growth strategy, is it 100% acquisition? Are you guys doing any de novos
No, it's mostly de novos. Throughout
or
the
de novo?
years, we acquired two practices, but the rest were de novos.
Okay, let's talk about that because that it's much more common to do acquisitions. So, what made you guys decide to do the de novo process, and how do you think that's like sets you apart?
Yeah, I think again over the years we figured out that our biggest forte is our people and our team and our culture, and so when you do an acquisition, it's very tough to convert, I guess, the old team into sort of our
Mm.
mindset and into our culture. So it just seems like it's a lot easier for us to start from the ground and build the practice the way we wanted to build, as opposed to trying to
One
change
plus one doesn't
everything.
always equal two, right?
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah, I hear that a lot. People having issues, trying to bring their cultures together. Like you, theoretically, you have a lot of synergy, but in practicality, it doesn't always work out.
Correct. Yes. And orthodontics traditionally is very segmented. So basically, every practice kind of runs
Mm.
totally different.
So, Ben, when did you start working with the company?
So I started in October of 2018.
Okay, wow. So you've been here quite a while now.
Hmm.
And what's your role exactly?
So I'm the patient experience manager.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, I know one of the things we talked about too is just the importance of being charitable and paying it forward more or less. And so I know you guys do a really great job with that. I want you, yeah, can you explain kind of like the different programs that you guys are doing in that sense?
Yeah, so we just finished our braces giveaway campaign where we donated about 13 lucky winners free braces treatment, for different clinics. It's just one lucky winner per clinic, where they could actually get a full free orthodontic treatment. And we surprised them on Christmas Eve with a phone call as a holiday gift,
Oh,
which
wow.
was really special to them. A lot of the
Who
families,
got to make
when
the
I was,
calls?
I actually made the calls this year,
Oh, that's
and
cool. That's
yeah,
got
a
to
lot
be
of,
really rewarding.
yeah, there was a lot of moms that were screaming on the phone for excitement, and a couple of them, were in tears, telling us like, because I mean, their stories put us all in tears when we were reading them, because they had to submit a one-page essay to us a week before, and we had about a full week to actually like read them. And then Christmas Eve, we actually, made those phone calls. We also partner with like a lot of local park districts, YMCA's, schools, local businesses around the area. swim schools, churches, synagogues, you name it. I mean, we're at a lot
Partner
of
in what way?
events. So we do a lot of like cross promoting, for example, with local businesses. So we kind of cross promote our like school flyers that we have. We do like exclusive discounts for like students, faculty, teachers. For them looking for braces. A couple schools are actually utilizing us as a orthodontist referral, just because we do accept PA insurance. And then also we are trying to actually get the doctors to, go to the schools to actually, do presentations, if it's virtual or if it's in person. We actually have hopefully something coming up pretty soon for our Mundelein before and after school program for the Park District. So that's going to be pretty exciting.
Oh,
But we
cool.
do a lot of, events as well. I mean, we kind of go big when it comes to community outreach, trying to just, get the word out there and just let people know we're here. That's the main thing, with community outreach. But we do a lot of events. And that's where, the communities tend to remember us because, they'll see us. They'll be like, oh my God, I saw you guys at the last event, and they get excited, and then they tell their friends. So a lot of it's, word of mouth too, as well.
So what's an event like? Like how
hmm
many of those are you doing? Do you have a team at each location, or do you have like a corporate team that goes, like every single week or every single weekend? Like how do you logistically,
hmm
what does that look like?
So I have a community outreach coordinator on my team, but we tend to try to get the clinics also involved. So the nice thing is, the clinics, it's always usually the manager and then like, one of their team members. But they usually love to join us for the events. We typically try to do at least 2 to 4 events per month if we can. That's our goal for this year for 2022 is to really like get out there into the community and do a lot more events. Some of the events we do are like trunk or treats where, we decorate the OE car and, the kids in October, they go trick or treating around the different cars.
Nice.
And yeah, and the fun thing was this year or last year, actually, when we did the trunk or treat, um, they had all of our backpacks that they were using as their trick or treat bags from the back to school event that we were at, in
Oh, cool.
August. So that's the nice thing is, they remember us, every time. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So we try to get everybody involved as much as possible. I know
So
Dr. Y is always going to those.
that's great. Yeah, and this is a question for
hmm
both of you guys. Is when you're starting an organization or your partner organization, when is a good time to get started being charitable? Like, do you need to wait till you have a certain amount of money? Do you do it right away from day one? You know what I mean? How do you balance that in your opinion?
mm
For us, I think it was pretty much from day one. Even at the time we didn't have a lot of money, we still did a lot of kind of local outreach programs like Ben mentioned, even going out to schools and doing things like oral hygiene instructions and giving out pencils to kids. It doesn't sometimes it doesn't take a lot of money. It could take just time and staff involvement, and I think that's a good way to actually involve your team and make them feel like they have a purpose as opposed to just working and making money. And that's one way we've been able to build kind of good culture and get some of the team members really to buy into the culture, into our mission, and feel like they're making a difference too. So it doesn't always have to be big financial donations or spending.
Okay. You could donate your time. Yeah. I love that. I mean,
hmm
at the end of the day, it's all about perspective. And, like it just even as if you're not a business, right? If you're a person and you have a job, like your chances are you're doing better than like 95% of the world in other places just by living in a third world, developed country. And so like I don't think it's ever too early to get started
hmm
being charitable. I think you could start right away. And like you said, if you don't have any money, like literally no money, you can still donate your time
Yeah, and I
to
know
help
too,
somebody because
Austin,
somebody
like
somewhere
with
needs
a
it
lot of
more than you do. And
our
so
community outreach that, we're planning to do for this year is, also like volunteer work. just, kind of giving back to the community as well. If it's helping like feed my starving children, or if it's, there's a couple like school events that are coming up with some of the locations that they just want help. They just need community member help, to help them out with it and just to be there. So we're trying to volunteer our time to, actually be at the schools or be at, whatever, like community, event, and actually just give back to them and just help them.
That's cool. And so one of the questions I always like to talk is like, every industry has their own beliefs, their commonly held beliefs, but what are some that you guys would disagree with?
Yeah, I think what the belief that kind of we broke through that made us successful is, traditionally orthodontics was more of a kind of privilege for, I guess, more privileged kids with patients with, in good financial situation, maybe, middle class, upper middle class kids. So we really believe strongly in access to care, and that is kind of what drives us. So we always strive to figure out a way how to make orthodontic treatment more accessible, and through accepting different range of insurances, any type of government assistance, being flexible on our payment options, payment plans, down payments, to try to kind of reach a wider demographic and to make the treatment more accessible to anyone. And, a lot of times, some of those disadvantaged kids are the ones that are going to benefit from that more, once they get that smile of a lifetime and that self-confidence, they actually have kind of more opportunities, and they have more doors that are open to them throughout lifetime.
Yeah, it's crazy. Smile goes a long way. I was reluctant to get braces myself because I thought I looked weird with them. And, I'm just like, I'm so happy I overcame that. I just said, hey, you know what, whatever. I'll suffer through it for 2 years in high school so that I can have straight teeth. Because like my teeth weren't perfect, but they weren't terrible either. But yeah, the confidence that you get, when you get those braces off, I was like the smilingest kid ever. Just like couldn't believe like how happy I was with that product. And yeah, it makes a big difference for the rest of
And
your
we
life.
see a lot of that in young adults too, the ones who weren't able to get treatment when they were kids. A lot of them are going back and getting that.
Okay. What's an idea that you've kind of evolved your thinking on as you've been in the industry?
In terms of business?
Yeah, in terms
Yeah,
of business,
as we
or
always,
just life in
yeah,
general.
yeah, the idea is we always look for opportunities, or always try to create opportunities. So looking for kind of voids in the market, and for the needs in the market or your industry, and kind of where we can help the underserved, either underserved population, or just whatever the need and the void is in the industry. That's where you get opportunities as a business, but you also help out your customers and the industry and overall. So just always be on the look out for new opportunities and for new voids, and try to fill those in.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I agree. Obviously, it takes a stroke of luck to, really strike it big, if you will. But you can have a very, very great life, just by working hard and keeping your head on straight. And eventually, you'll find yourself in the right place at the right time. Maybe you won't ever
Especially in
be,
this country.
yeah, you might not ever be Bill Gates, right? But like, why do you need to? You know what I mean? Like, you can have a
Right.
really, really high quality, very fulfilling life, without being the richest person in the world or even in the room.
I agree.
All right. So when it comes to real estate, I like the fact that you guys grow de novo. Obviously for us being commercial real estate developers and brokers, like it's a big deal. Because where you go is like the first most important decision that you'll make, right? And like if you go to the wrong spot, that's going to cost you a lot. Either A, you're going to have to shut down the clinic, or B, if you got to relocate, when you're talking about the cost of build out, 185, $200 a square foot, it's a very, very expensive mistake. So what's your real estate strategy?
It's interesting, actually. Us growing de novo is one of the reasons. Real estate is one of the reasons for that, because again, traditionally, orthodontists would open up more in medical centers and office buildings, and without good visibility and without good signage. So we take a more of a retail approach to that, and it's definitely been a challenge finding good. We have certain requirements we have to meet in terms of the size of the clinic and the visibility we want to have, and the signage and parking requirements. So I think real estate is definitely one of the most challenging things. Once we figure out the demographics and where we want to be and where the need is for our services, then we get on to looking for good real estate, and sometimes it could be a bottleneck. It just a lot of times there's a shortage of the type of real estate we're looking for.
Yeah. So I know some of the things, like different things that you can look at, anchor tenants, neighbor tenants, synergistic users, drive-by traffic, street visibility. Obviously, price per square foot plays a big part of it. So you can also offset when you look at rent as a factor of your marketing. You can offset some of your marketing by paying a little bit more for rent. And the things that we like about rent is that it's fixed. So yes, you do pay a lot more per square foot when you go on a high visibility area. But if that allows you to save a little bit of money in digital ads, then it could be paying for itself, right? Or like just in the terms of the amount of new patients that you get. If you know your numbers, like if you know how much it costs, like say it costs you $200, right, to get a new customer, well, you can quickly do some calculations on the price that you're paying per rent to find out how many new patients do you need per month to offset, an extra 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Like we had one case where the guy, he was paying $3,000 a month in rent. His business was struggling. We found a spot for him that was much better. It was 10 grand a month, right? He more than tripled, but his top line revenue doubled from like 50 to over 100 grand a month. And this is, several years back. So when you look at it, that way, then it really starts to make more sense, right? So that's what we look at. So do you guys, do you get what you would consider like a retail area? Are you looking are there any tenants, neighbors that work for you?
I'd agree with you as far as the allocation revenue. So that is why we look more for, well, not more, exclusively for good retail locations with family-friendly mix of tenants. So sometimes that's a challenge too. You have a good visibility, space with a smoke shop next to it or something that's not really where the parents wouldn't want to go, take their kid to. So we do look for a mix of family-friendly, kids-friendly tenants, or sort of healthcare-oriented co-tenants. Again, good signage, good visibility, because we are growing at a fairly fast rate. We like to use real estate, as you said, as a kind of leverage as part of our marketing strategy to help us grow faster.
Yeah, I think that's a smart way to do it. When you say growing at a fast rate, how many locations are you guys doing a year?
On average year, we do about 3 to 4.
Okay.
So
And
this year we have about 2 or 3 coming.
Okay. Do you ever buy the real estate, or do you mostly rent?
So right now it's half and half. Buying is a challenge too, especially if you are looking for a good mix of co-tenants, and then you either have to really go heavy into buying some big strip malls or big properties, which we're not at that point yet. We're trying to focus on the business part as opposed to managing real estate.
Yeah.
But if we can find a good, ideally like a freestanding location with great visibility, great signage, we definitely prefer to buy. But those are not easy to come by either.
Is there ever any
It's
problems?
like 50-50 mix currently.
Yeah. Is there ever any problems getting the lending from the banks?
Not typically. Again, depends on the property. We do most of our business with the same bank we do our kind of business banking. So we do our real estate banking with them also, since they have a good grip on our kind of business situation or business financials, it hasn't been an issue. But again, we don't get involved into purchasing big strip centers and shopping malls. So that might have been easier.
Okay. Um, yeah, that's cool. So yeah, I think it makes sense. Like a lot of guys, you got to decide where you get the most return on your capital, right? It's like, is that through the real estate or is that through the business? Because I know a lot of guys, they get tripped up, they get so caught up with wanting to own the real estate that it can keep them from
Right.
growing their business, right? And so it's like the bank doesn't like you to have, they want a certain amount of debt they want you to have on your balance sheets. And so if the real estate's keeping you from growing faster, then a lot of times it might not be worth it. And that's why, we just recommend, finding a partner, right? Like, well, obviously we're happy to do that. We're happy to be the real estate partner, but it doesn't have to be us. There's other guys who'll do it too. But yeah, just somebody who could come in, they work with you, they know your needs, they buy the real estate, and they can do leasebacks or they can do partnerships on the ownership. That way, it could free up your balance books and your time and attention, so you can focus on areas where you're probably going to get a better ROI than just focusing on the real estate.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of times, as you mentioned, you can get a better visibility, better mix of co-tenants when you do lease. I mean, long term, we would love to own all of our locations, but we don't want that to put a brake on our business growth.
Yeah. Yeah. So, is there anything that you'd like to add for everybody listening? Anything that we didn't talk about orthodontic experts or just in general that you think has, helped you in your career?
In general, I think good people help me. People like Ben, who believe in us and believe in the growth and really kind of take it to heart and help us grow and be better. Like, if you put your team ahead of yourself and, really empower them to do whatever they need to do, they'll help you grow also.
Okay, yeah, that's great. So then, what podcasts and what books would you recommend that have been influential for you?
Oh, yeah. These days there's so many podcasts.
I know.
It's hard to. Yeah, I mean, the probably one of my favorite is the How I Build This with Guy Raz, one of the kind of more business podcasts. It's just interesting to
Yeah,
hear
that's actually
different.
one of my favorites too.
Nice. Just even it's not that much related to health, to healthcare or orthodontics, but it's just interesting the different types of businesses. There's so many things that overlap and so many things that kind of true in any business you go into. It's very interesting to hear all of those stories and how people build their businesses. Yeah, same
Yeah,
with books. There's so many these days. It
I
seems
know.
like everyone's publishing a book. So I think my favorite is still kind of the most basic. Poor Dad, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I love
Just
that book
again, it
too.
has a lot of concepts that apply to your personal finances and your business finances and just overall how you evaluate things.
So anybody who's listening, they want to reach out and get in touch. What's a good resource for that?
Yeah, the easiest way is probably email, which is easy. Doctor as in Dr.y at orthodonticexperts.com.
Okay. And Ben, what about you?
Ben
Same
at
email?
orthodonticexperts.com.
Okay. Okay, I'll write that in the show notes. But yeah, this is great. I think what you guys are doing is good. Paying it forward with the charity makes the world a better place. I think we all got our part to play, and I think you guys are doing a great job with that. So, and thanks for explaining that and for your time today.
Thanks, Austin. Thanks for
Thanks,
having us.
Austin.
It's been a pleasure.